I still have to do more research on these guys. Maybe even listen to a full album of theirs because I haven't. So I'll make an update video of what I fully think of BTS, finally knowing the full context of who they are, where they came from, their songs, their albums, and everything. I'm gonna go full on stalker mode like I do with all my favorite bands. So, who knows? I really think there's potential. I really want to give them a chance because I know it's tough for new bands, especially in America, to start up. Especially with a cultural difference and a clashing of different languages. It's quite hard, and sometimes they end up becoming fading into obscurity, which I don't want. I think these guys can go far. They've already won a few awards and have been nominated for quite a bit, so obviously there's potential. Obviously they have a big fan base that's continuously growing throughout the months and throughout this year, so I want to see them to the end. I think they have potential, so I'll come back with an update. How times have changed. Anyway, hey guys, MissNotSoCool here, and today we are finally here with a full-on review on Bangtan Sonyeon, also known as BTS, also known as Beyond the Scene. So, they are a 7-member South Korean boy group or band, depending on how you want to see it, that consists of some rappers and some vocalists, and I believe one visualist. I'm not entirely sure on that one. But yeah, before we go into this episode is going to be a different constructed video. It's not really review time like I did with my other last 2 videos because we are purely reviewing just BTS today. But yeah, so full on disclaimer, it's going to be fully BTS oriented, so leave right away if this is not for you. For others that are curious, stick around because I have listened to most of BTS albums that I was able to listen to on Spotify. And first, let's set up the rules first. I only listen to their albums that were in Korean. I don't consider their Japanese albums as their albums. I just consider the Korean albums that includes their mini albums and things like that. I consider them as other albums, even though they're mini albums in a trilogy. And I categorize actually, that's the right word. I categorize this category into 3, I used to put them in 3 categories. First one was the actual lyrics in translation, what I thought about them, how the music sounded, and the music videos that went along with it. Obviously, music video is hard to judge because most of them seemed fine to me. I mean, there's a few, hiccups here and there, but I'm not really gonna strain on that too much. In fact, I'm gonna play most of the music videos in the background for you to watch just in slow-mo as I'm reviewing this, as you can almost see on your screen. The first album in the School Trilogy mini albums is Too Cool for School. It's a 7-song album that I thought was overall decent and gets points for having a pretty good introduction. I thought the introduction was very good for a first album. It only consists of 2 skits, both of which are fine, and despite the language barrier, I thought it was easy to follow. Keep in mind, most of these albums that I listened to in terms of translation, I read them on Genius.com. So, there might be a few hiccups here, I'm not entirely sure, so take it with a grain of salt. But I feel like most of the translation was mostly accurate, and it did give me it did tell me who was talking, even though I had no idea who was talking in the songs. I was able to tell who was talking by Genius.com, so that was mostly for the skits. The second album, Oh, Are You Late Too?, is a 10-song album. It has very similar themes as the last album, and it could be possibly directly linked or even sequel to it. The skits are okay, nothing special. I personally preferred the skits in the first version, in the first song album. But they were fine. However, there was a questionable lyric by Rap Monster in it that was in If I Ruled the World, where he claimed that he would erase racism, but then immediately follows it up with a line mentioning how he would get Asian girls, European girls, and white girls. Nothing particularly wrong with the line per se. That's his personal interest. I'm not gonna tell him who his type should be. Everyone has a type. But I just thought it was interesting how he mentions erasing or ending racism and then immediately doesn't include a lot of women of color in his dating portfolio. Again, I'm not going to hold it against him or anything. I thought it was just an interesting choice of words. It doesn't entirely take away from the song If I Rule the World. It's still a fine song on its own. It was just a line that did stick out to me when I first read the English translation of it. The third and final installment in the School trilogy is School Love Affair. I take points away from the misspelling of the title. Love, it should not be Luv, and there is no K in school, it has a C and an H. So, points off for that. But then again, they were teenagers, I think, so. Still, I think they should have known better. The album is, it has 10 songs, and I don't know, I believe this is when they got signed with Big Hit, or maybe they were signed already before, but now this album had a much clearer production behind it than it did with the other albums. It still had a very aggressive rap theme to it, sound that it had with the others, but it was much smoother than the other two albums combined, which I think is kind of a plus in terms of their branding and appealing to a younger demographic without coming off as threatening, per se. This was the album where I heard Boy Love, I believe. Yes, Boy Love. Which was a song I heard on its own, randomly. And with the context of it being in the album, it still makes sense. It's still a likable song in my favor. Overall, the School Trilogy albums were pretty good. They were very consistent in having that school aesthetic, as well as showcasing being hungry for wanting more and always following your dreams, which is good. Personally, I have a hard time picking which album I like the most from this trilogy. I'm stuck between Too Cool for School as well as School Love Affair, personally speaking. Here we have the very first full-on album from BTS called Dark and Wild, which wasn't bad. Although the song Could You Turn Off Your Phone was a bit laughable to me in a way that, I get the whole message of, oh, you should just get off your phone. We're trying to hang out and things like that. Why can't we just talk anymore like we used to? People these days, kids these days, just always on their phone, even though they built their brand on the internet, and I'm listening to your songs on my phone, and reviewing them on my phone. So, I don't know. I get the overall meaning. I'm sure it meant well. It was just kind of funny thinking of it in that regard. But overall, the album was mostly fine. There was a weird surprise guest collab with Supreme Boy, who never pops up later on in the album, except to do a mild chorus on BTS Cypher 3 Killer. I don't know, that threw me off for a bit, because there was no introduction to him. I didn't know who he was. I still technically don't know who he was. It was just kind of random. Now, in terms of the beats were good, as they were in the School Love Affair trilogy. They were pretty catchy and consistent with the theme. I thought the beats work here were pretty good as well. Lyrics were fine as well, although I did see that there was a lot of controversy in terms of their song War on Hormone, with people claiming it was misogynistic, and I will address that and say, personally, when I first heard the song without the context of the album, and I didn't really see much of the lyrics, except for the music video. Their music video has its own lyrics. Personally, when I first saw that music video, I immediately thought, this is the fuckboy anthem. Now knowing the full context of the song, and actually listening to it in the context of the actual album, I still think it's somewhat of a fuckboy anthem. It is a war on hormone story about these teenage boys going against their hormones. And I don't think it's exactly as bad as some people make it seem to be. Yes, there are some lyrics that are a bit questionable, like the women being gifts to guys and things like that, but for the most part, it never struck me as too far, because they are at least trying to be gentlemen towards this girl. And in the chorus, they do explicitly say, especially in English, that she should tell them what they want, so that way they can quote-unquote give it to her. So, there is some form of consent going on from what I believe. And looking even deeper on it, it was based on their experience that they had filming in LA for this music video. Because there's two versions of this music video for this song. One in LA, which I believe was the first one, I'm not entirely sure, And then the second one is the most notable one that's in Korea, that has all the dance moves and things like that. Personally, I enjoy the one that has the dance moves. It was very more synchronized. But I did enjoy the LA one. It was very chilled and relaxed, and I thought it was overall cute. As for the song itself, yeah, it's very much still a fuckboy anthem in my opinion. I don't think they intended it to be as bad as it came off to be. With the intention of it, it doesn't make me that uncomfortable listening to it, but I can't understand how other people can interpret the lyrics. After all, people might not know the full context, and even with the context, it's just how they personally feel about the song, which you can't change, and I understand that. But as is, the song is okay. It has questionable lyrics, but it's not as bad as I've seen the controversies make it out to be in terms of its misogynistic lyrics, personally speaking. But I'm not going to take it away from someone who feels that they are misogynistic. After all, they have every right to feel that it might be, because that is their personal interpretation of it. Now we move on to the Most Trilogy mini albums, which consists of The Most Beautiful Moment in Life Part 1, The Most Beautiful Moment in Life Part 2, and book ends with The Most Beautiful Moment in Life, Young Forever. The overall tone of The Most Beautiful Moment in Life trilogy is very soft-spoken and sounds drastically very light compared to their earlier albums. The songs are somewhat moving and connecting with the singers, and the singles are quite fun. I personally found Converse High to be a corny song though, but it didn't take away the feel everyone gave in the song, no matter how slightly ridiculous the subject, such as admitting preferences to shoes they like on girls, may be. Also, on the last album, The Most Beautiful Moment in Life, Young Forever, it's not really an album outside of an extension of what this album, as what the first part and second part is, because it has a lot of the same songs from those albums, but it's just repackaged and has extensions from it, additional content, which I thought was pretty cool. It has 2 remix / ballad or urban versions of Run and I Need You, as well as an alternative version of Butterfly. Neither are bad, and personally I thought that was pretty cool that they added alternative versions of their songs, or at least a ballad version or a remix version. Because sometimes I like listening to songs, and then on YouTube I find like there's a collab between the two where they get 2 different singers from completely different genres and bring them together. It's usually just YouTube edits that do this, or they get 2 completely different songs and then make them smash together in terms of vocals or background beats, and I always thought that was cool, and sometimes I even like it more than the original. Not all the time, but sometimes I do. So I thought it was pretty cool that they did that themselves, because most artists don't remix their own stuff, at least not more than one. Now, of course, they didn't remix all their songs on that album, of course, but the fact that they did one for Run, I Need You, and Butterfly was still pretty good and cool, so I'll give them a point for that. Then we have here the second full album called Wings. This album best showcased all the solo work of all the BTS members. It starts with J-Hope's Boy Meets Evil as an intro, and the book ends with every member coming together in the Wings interlude. How fitting. Lie by Jimin was great and gave a deeper look into Jimin's vocals. Let me just say the boy can sure hit those high notes. Mama by J-Hope was sweet in reminding his mother she's free to smile now that her son is accomplished and successful in life. Reflection and BTS Cypher 4 were interesting songs to me, as it showed the perspective of how Rap Monster viewed and reviews himself, first saying he doesn't like himself in Reflection, and then later contradicting himself in BTS Cypher 4 by saying he knows and loves himself more than anyone. So I thought those were interesting takes. Jin's Awake was also another song I really loved off the Wings album, especially considering he's the member who gives the least amount of lines in newer songs. Lost struck a personal chord with me, as it would with anyone who's feeling lost in life, whether they are in self-doubt or questioning their life goals. We've all been there. The last song that made me feel the exact motions I felt on this song would have to be Moving On from the Most Beautiful Moment in Life Part 1. Though I have no personal experience in moving out as of yet, it's something that's inevitable for everyone in their stages of life. Then we have You Never Walk Alone, which is so far the most recent one they have. on Spotify. Most albums on this song, like The Last Installment and The Most Beautiful Moment in Life trilogy, were already on previous albums before, and it's just an extension of songs. In You Never Walk Alone is where you find Not Today, First Love, and Spring Day. Also, before we conclude this, let me just go back and say I didn't really care much for BTS Cypher 4, although it was interesting. The constant rhyming of Bae kind of got on my nerves a bit. I just didn't like it. I felt like Bae would have been better. I just can't stand the phrase Bae anymore. But hey, at least they didn't go too deep into internet lingo. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. Now, in terms of mixtapes that I've heard, I've only listened to two. One by Suga, also I guess D, and one by Rap Monster. As far as I know, the others don't seem to have full-on solo work albums, at least. But most of their solo songs that I heard was on Wings, which was great. It was a great way of them to have the solos come together. I don't really see that for groups, where they have their solo work and also perform their solo work together, unless it's like a reunion tour. But the fact that they did that and have that free liberty to do whatever they want and express their artistic integrity, so to speak, I thought that was pretty good. Their artistic freedom, even. As for what I thought about the full-on albums of Rap Monsters and Suga's, I thought they were both pretty good. August D's was, well, I'm just gonna call him Suga because it's easier. Suga's mixtape was, it was short. I believe it was only 10 songs. And it was very emotional when he gets deep and talks about how fame changed his life, how money changed his life, how he's currently, or at least, yeah, probably still currently dealing with social anxiety, social phobia, and things like that. Which was a very sensitive subject for him to even bring up because it's very personal to him. Rap Monster also got a little bit personal as well, especially towards the end of the album, where he started talking about how he feels being in a spotlight and things like that. How he's always been judged, being the member, and being quote-unquote the unconventionally attractive one. Personally, I thought these albums were great. I really like Rap Monster's album, and I'm looking forward to his second mixtape. Suga also had a lot of potential. I liked where he was going with his album, and I would like to see more from these guys. And I'm sure the rest would make great mixtapes as well, but so far they haven't. I've only heard some songs and maybe covers, which were also pretty good to me. As for what I think of the fan base of ARMY, which is an acronym for Adorable Representation of MC Youth, I think they mean well, just like the group. They are very much intense, like most fan bases are, I believe. But they seem very passionate about their group, and they even go as far as to translate lyrics for the international fans, such as people like me, which is also pretty cool. Not a lot of fan bases do that from what I've noticed in K-pop, at least from my experience. They really go the extra mile to get everyone involved, to spam this shit out of their music videos on Twitter, which apparently worked, because that's how most people got to find them and how they won the Billboard Awards and have gained popularity since. So they're extreme, they're intense, but they seem to be a very loyal and fun fan base. And with every fan base there are a few hiccups, but I believe this ARMY is strong and dedicated and will probably last a long time, considering how strong they connect with the artists. And I think that's very sweet. Now, in terms of which members that I personally like the best, or in this case my quote-unquote bias, originally from just looking at them randomly without the full context of the albums, I thought J-Hope was going to be my favorite one, followed by Rap Monster, then Jin, Jimin, and then V, Jungkook, and Suga would all kind of be lumped together in the fourth category of members that I liked. But now, after finally finishing listening to all the albums, and then looking at all the mixtapes and everything, I finally realized it's a lot harder to categorize them now because they all have special qualities that I like about them. As of now, J-Hope, Rap Monster, and Jin are all lumped together in the first category that I like. then followed by Jimin, and V, Jungkook, and Suga would all still be in the third category. I don't know why, but for some reason, that's how I see it. Those are my bias from 3 layers. First layer being J-Hope, Rap Monster, and Jin. Second layer just being Jimin by himself. Third layer, V, Jungkook, and Suga. Just, I don't know why. And sometimes Suga goes up to the second layer with Jimin sometimes, so it's really debatable. It goes up and down. It's not 100% reliable. I seem to like them all so far, but as of right now, I still like J-Hope a lot. I still like Jin a lot. I still like Rap Monster a lot. And honestly, I don't think that's 100% reliable anyway, because I end up liking all of them anyway, but that's just me personally speaking. Last summary of what I think of BTS. Well, I never watched the reality TV shows or variety shows that they did. I don't hold past questionable lyrics or comments that they've made fully against them. I don't feel cases that they've had on plagiarism is big enough, mainly because in America it's really tough for plagiarism cases because there's so much sampling going around, and chances are, because of being inspired by a lot of people, you are going to sound a lot similar in terms of beats, depending on where your inspiration comes from. So I don't think plagiarism is a full-on case for them as well, or a strong one, at the very least. Especially when Rap Monster specifically apologized for some of the cases of it, and has stated he will educate himself. To me, it seems like all the members are still maturing alongside their loyal fan base, as long as they keep them in check, which I'm sure they would. But anyway, that's my review of BTS. Hope you enjoyed it. They're going to have a new album out called Love Yourself/Her by September 18th. So by the time this video goes up, it's either already available out for pre-orders, so check it out. Honestly. Check out the first stuff first before pre-ordering the album, or at least waiting for it like I am, for it to be available on other platforms like YouTube or Spotify, or any other platform that it can be available on. As for now, that's all I have to say. So anyway, bye guys, and have a great week. I'll see you in the next episode or whatever other video I decide to make. So bye, and stay cool.